Hey everyone, ready to dive deep into the fascinating world of science and critical thinking?
Absolutely. We've got a stack of lectures to explore, covering everything from those spooky ghosts and miracles to some pretty big scientific blunders, things that even really smart people fell for.
It's like, how do we even know what we know?
Yeah,
And with so much information out there these days, how do we sort the fact from the fiction?
exactly. We'll uncover the tools to spot pseudoscience, that fake science that tries to sound legit.
Oh, and speaking of things that sound legit, we hear studies show all the time. But are those studies even any good?
Right, that's a great point. We'll learn how to evaluate studies because even a study with fancy stats might not tell the whole story. Like, what if they only asked like 10 people? Or the researchers were biased?
Okay, so let's jump into this first lecture. It's called Science and the Supernatural. Can science even, address questions about ghosts or miracles or even, the big one, God?
Well, this lecture dives into the limits of science. It can only investigate things that are testable and falsifiable. If you can't disprove a claim, it falls outside the realm of science.
So it's like saying, there's an invisible dragon in my garage. You can't prove it's not there, but that doesn't mean it is there,
Right,
right?
exactly. It's about the burden of proof. The person making the claim, they've got to bring the evidence. The lecture uses this cool analogy called Russell's teapot.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What's Russell's teapot?
Imagine a tiny teapot orbiting the sun, somewhere between Earth and Mars, so small we can't see it with telescopes. Can you prove it's not there?
I mean, no, but that doesn't mean.
Exactly. Just because you can't disprove something doesn't make it true.
So does that mean we should dismiss anything we can't currently explain? Isn't there a danger in being too quick to say, nope, impossible?
That's where the balance comes in. It's not about being cynical, but a healthy skeptic. You can stay open-minded, curious even, but we shouldn't jump to supernatural explanations just because we don't have all the answers yet.
Okay, makes sense. Now let's talk about some really smart people who got things wrong. The Great Scientific Blunders lecture. It reminds us that even brilliant minds make mistakes. Sometimes those mistakes teach us a lot.
Absolutely. The lecture starts with this crazy story about N-rays. A French physicist, René Blondlot, he thought he discovered a new type of radiation. Turns out it didn't even exist. He was seeing what he wanted to see.
Wait, so over 300 papers were published on these imaginary N-rays. How could so many scientists be fooled?
It was a perfect storm of, well, Blondlot was a respected scientist. Everyone was excited about X-rays and wanted to discover something new, and the experiments were subjective. They were looking for confirmation, not questioning the N-rays themselves.
So confirmation bias in action. They wanted to believe it so badly, they overlooked the flaws in the experiments. And I bet we all do that sometimes, not just scientists.
Oh, absolutely. We'll see how confirmation bias pops up everywhere, from our personal beliefs to investing in, like, the stock market.
Okay, let's stick with the blunders for a minute. What about cold fusion? I remember that was a big deal back in the day. Two chemists claimed they'd achieved nuclear fusion at room temperature.
Right. Revolutionary if it were true. But they announced it at a press conference before other scientists could review their work. It caused a media frenzy, but most scientists were skeptical right from the start.
So the pressure to be the first to discover something big can lead to, well, cutting corners.
Yeah, that's a cautionary tale about the importance of the scientific process, peer review, replication, the whole 9 yards. You can't jump to conclusions, even if the discovery seems amazing.
Makes sense. Now, this next blunder, it involves a miscalculation of the age of the Earth. Lord Kelvin, he used thermodynamics, the study of heat, to estimate that the Earth was only a few million years old.
Yeah, and that really clashed with geologists who were finding evidence for a much older Earth, like way older.
So was Kelvin's math just wrong?
Actually, his calculations were correct based on what was known at the time. The problem was, he didn't know about radioactivity yet.
Ah, so he was missing a key piece of the puzzle. And this highlights how science is always learning. You have to be open to new discoveries that might change our understanding of even the most basic things.
You got it. Radioactivity completely changed our understanding of Earth's history. These blunders show that science is always evolving. It's not about some set of fixed, unchanging truths.
All right, so even brilliant minds can get things wrong. But what about people who twist science on purpose to push their own agenda? That brings us to science versus pseudoscience. How do we tell the difference between real science and the fake stuff?
This is key because pseudoscience is everywhere these days. It's on our social media, in our email inboxes, sometimes even in our doctor's offices. This lecture reminds us that there's no clear dividing line between science and pseudoscience. It's more of a spectrum.
Right. Some things are obviously bogus, but others try to use sciencey words to sound credible. It's like they put a lab coat on their claims to make them look legit.
Exactly. But there are red flags. One is motivated reasoning. They start with the conclusion they want and then cherry pick evidence to support it. Like, someone might be convinced vaccines are dangerous, so they only read articles that support that, ignoring all the research that says they're safe.
It's like they're wearing blinders. They see only what they want to see.
Another giveaway is relying on anecdotes. They love personal stories and testimonials, but those can be super misleading. Someone might say, my aunt's arthritis vanished after she took this herbal supplement, but that doesn't mean the supplement actually worked.
Right. Correlation doesn't equal causation. What about those claims that seem too good to be true, like miracle cures or theories that explain everything in the universe? Are those red flags too?
Big red flags. Pseudoscience loves grandiose claims that go way beyond what the evidence supports. And if you challenge them, they often resort to conspiracy theories or attack mainstream science.
Like saying they're being silenced or that big pharma is hiding the truth from us.
Exactly. We'll dig into grand conspiracy thinking in a later lecture, but for now, remember, being skeptical is good, but cynicism can make you miss the real truth. We need evidence and logic, not just gut feelings or distrust of authority.
Okay, so if we hear something fishy, ask, what's the evidence? Is it just someone's story or solid research? Are there other explanations? And does the person making the claim, do they benefit if we believe them?
You got it. It's all about that critical thinking mindset, and that's what this deep dive is all about.
I'm already looking at information differently. It's like I'm getting a toolkit to spot the BS. But what if the BS comes from people we trust, our friends, family, or people we admire? The lecture on denialism, rejecting science and history, that one seems really relevant.
Oh, it's huge EE. It's about how we deal with information that challenges what we believe, even how people can reject solid facts for ideological reasons.
So it's more than just being skeptical. It's about actively denying the evidence, even when it's overwhelming.
You nailed it. Denialism can be about science, like climate change, or history, like denying the Holocaust happened. It often involves motivated reasoning, where people start with the conclusion they want to be true and then rationalize it.
They build a wall around their beliefs and block anything that might break it down.
Exactly. And there are common tactics they use. Moving the goalposts is one. They keep demanding more evidence. Even when there's tons already, you give them more, and they change their demands again.
It's a game you can never win.
Right. Then there's making demands for evidence that are impossible to meet, like wanting a single study that proves a complex scientific theory. Or they dismiss entire categories of evidence outright.
Like climate change deniers who reject the consensus among climate scientists, saying it's all a hoax.
Exactly. Or they focus on tiny issues while ignoring the bigger picture. They cherry-pick data to support their view and ignore anything that contradicts it. And when all else fails, they cry, conspiracy.
So it's a way to avoid actually dealing with the evidence honestly. But what do we do about denialism, especially when it comes from loved ones? It's one thing to spot it in the media. It's another when it's your uncle at Thanksgiving dinner.
That's tough, and we're going to tackle that head on in the next lecture. We'll get into strategies for having those difficult conversations, how to do it respectfully, and maybe even get somewhere. But first, let's look at one of the most common forms of misinformation out there. Marketing scams and those urban legends that everyone seems to know. This lecture is called Marketing Scams and Urban Legends, and it dives into that world of misinformation that really preys on our deepest fears and desires, you know?
Oh yeah, my spam folder's a goldmine for that stuff. Get-rich-quick schemes, those miracle cures, you name it.
It's a minefield out there.
It really is. But how do these scams even work? They seem so obvious.
I know, right? But they play on what we really want, like wealth, health, belonging, that kind of stuff. Take the Nigerian prince scam. It's still around because, well, who wouldn't want a sudden windfall?
Agreed. Yeah, I get that. But what about urban legends, like the spider in the hairdo or the kidney thieves? Those just freak me out.
Oh, for sure. Those play on our fears, like really primal fears, like safety and contamination, you know. Think about the kidney thief one. Hospitals, surgery, we feel vulnerable, so it just hits those buttons.
Right, right. But how do we protect ourselves? I mean, it's so easy to get caught up in a good story, especially when it's like all over social media.
This lecture really emphasizes verifying. Like, just a few minutes online can often debunk these viral stories. There are sites like Snopes and factcheck.org. They're great for that. Just because everyone's sharing it doesn't mean it's true.
Yeah, so true. We need to be way more discerning about what we, consume and share. Which, speaking of discernment, let's talk about how science is portrayed in the media. This next lecture is called Science, Media, and Democracy, and he gets into that tricky relationship.
Yeah, it's super important because most people, that's how they get their science news, right? Through the media. But it's not always straightforward. Reporters, they got to simplify stuff, make it understandable, and the pressure to get attention can lead to those crazy headlines that really twist the actual science.
Oh, I've seen those headlines. Scientists discover cure for cancer. But then you read the article, and it's like a tiny study, super early findings.
Exactly. They did this whole thing on finger regrowth, calling it pixie dust, made it sound like we'd be regenerating limbs any day now. It was just hype.
So we need journalists who can break down complex science accurately, without the sensationalism. But it's not just hype, right? There's also that thing where they present both sides, even when the evidence is super clear on one side.
Oh, the false balance thing.
Right.
Yeah, that's a problem. Giving equal weight to opposing views when one is clearly wrong, it creates this illusion of controversy, makes people think there's more debate than there really is.
It's like giving a flat earther equal time with an astrophysicist. It's misleading and undermines, actual scientific consensus.
Absolutely. The lecture argues that scientific literacy, it's crucial for a functioning democracy. If people don't understand basic science, how can they make informed decisions about like climate change or vaccines?
That's a great point. We need better science education, A&D, more responsible reporting. So this ties into our next topic, experts and scientific consensus. Who do we trust when it comes to science? How do we tell the real experts from the posers?
Right, because online, everyone's an expert on something. This lecture really dives into the idea that expertise is specific to a certain area, a domain. Just because someone's a brilliant artist or a business mogul doesn't mean they know anything about like climate science or vaccines.
So just because someone's famous or successful doesn't mean they're a science authority.
Exactly. We got to look at their credentials, what they've done in their field, do their views align with, the consensus among other experts.
Okay, so how do we assess expertise? What are the signs?
The lecture points to things like education, experience, have they published research, won awards, are they recognized by other people in their field? Basically, what proof do we have that they know their stuff?
Like checking references for a job. But even real experts, they can be wrong, can't they? Especially if they're talking outside their area of expertise.
Oh, absolutely. Don't blindly trust authority figures, even if they have fancy degrees. Always critically evaluate what they're saying and the evidence they present, same as you would with anyone else.
Which leads us to scientific consensus. The lecture explains that when a bunch of experts agree on something, it's a pretty good sign that idea is valid.
Right. It doesn't mean it's the absolute truth. Science is always learning. But a strong consensus, it should carry weight. Think of it like the wisdom of the crowd, but with experts. Many minds are usually better than one, even a brilliant one.
The lecture uses climate change as an example. Most climate scientists agree that the Earth is warming and humans are causing it.
Exactly. Ignoring that consensus, that's just foolish. It's based on tons of research, mountains of data, and there's this cool story about Richard Mueller. He was a physicist who was like a climate skeptic. So he analyzed all the data himself, thought he'd disprove the consensus, but guess what?
He changed his mind.
Yep, the evidence convinced him. That's how it should work. So we need to be aware of our own biases, look at claims critically, consider the consensus, and be open to changing our minds when the evidence says we should.
It's a lot to keep in mind.
It is. But this deep dive, it's giving you the tools. Now, let's get to the really tough part. What about those people we love who hold beliefs that just seem irrational, maybe even harmful? The last lecture is Critical Thinking and Science in Your Life, and it gives some good advice on this.
This is the stuff that keeps me up at night. How do we even approach those conversations without, alienating people we care about?
Well, the lecture starts by reminding us that attacking someone's beliefs head-on, that almost never works. It just makes people defensive. They dig in deeper.
Like if your uncle's convinced of some wild conspiracy theory, telling him he's wrong will probably just backfire.
Big time. A better way is to ask questions. Encourage critical thinking. Instead of saying, you're wrong, try, how did you come to that belief? Or what evidence convinces you the most?
So it's a dialogue, not a debate. and maybe help them see their own biases. But what if they just double down on their crazy ideas?
Well, remember, changing someone's mind, it's a marathon, not a sprint. It takes patience, empathy, Meet them where they are. We can plant seeds of doubt, share good evidence, but ultimately they have to choose to open their mind.
Right, you can lead a horse to water, but
Exactly. You can't force it to drink, but you can create an environment where critical thinking is, encouraged and valued.
okay, that's a good reminder. I'm already getting a better sense of how to approach these conversations. It's about asking questions, listening with empathy, respecting the right to believe whatever, even if we think it's totally wrong. But what about applying critical thinking to our own lives? It's one thing to spot misinformation out there, but how do we make it a habit?
That's the core of this last lecture. It reminds us that our brains, they're wired for survival, not always for accuracy. We have all these biases that can trip us up, make us irrational.
Right, we talked about confirmation bias, that Dunning-Kruger effect, all those mental shortcuts.
The big takeaway is don't just trust your gut. We got to actively engage our critical thinking to avoid being fooled. The lecture suggests this Bayesian approach, basically updating your beliefs as new evidence comes in. What we know today might change tomorrow.
So it's about being humble, being open to new info, and realizing that uncertainty is just like part of life.
Exactly. It also emphasizes emotional intelligence, how our feelings can really mess with our thinking. Sometimes you got to step back and ask, am I reacting to facts or just how I feel right now?
Like having an inner emotion detector. I love that. But what about those big decisions, like choosing a career, buying a house, or even just deciding what to eat for dinner? Does critical thinking help there too? For me, that part about defining the problem before making a decision, that really stuck with me.
Yeah, it's easy to jump to solutions without really understanding the problem.
Totally. It seems so simple, but I realize I do that all the time.
But if you don't have a clear picture of the problem, you might end up solving the wrong thing.
Right. Like trying to fix a broken leg with a Band-Aid.
Ouch. Yeah, exactly. So, before you make any big decisions, slow down, ask, what am I actually trying to do here? What are the possible outcomes?
Okay, those are good questions to ask. And this critical thinking stuff, it's not just for big life choices, right?
No way. It's for those everyday things too. What to eat, what to watch, should I reply to this email?
It's about being mindful, questioning things, making choices based on evidence, not just how I feel at that moment.
Absolutely. And knowing when you need more information before deciding, it's okay to say, I don't know, and then go find out more.
So humility, being open to learning and being okay with not knowing everything.
Yep. Uncertainty is part of life. Critical thinking helps us deal with it, make good choices.
Man, this whole deep dive has been amazing, like a masterclass in critical thinking. Science, psychology, everything.
I'm glad you got so much out of it. Remember, it's a habit. The more you use it, the better you get at seeing through misinformation, making good choices.
I'm ready to put it all into practice. Thanks for taking us on this journey.
My pleasure. And to everyone listening, stay curious, stay skeptical, and never stop questioning. That's how we learn and grow.
Couldn't have said it better myself. That's it for this deep dive, folks. Thanks for joining us, and until next time, keep those minds sharp.